What is up, everybody? Mark on the mic, Mr. Ryan Muckenhirn across from me. Ryan, when it comes to your passion for pouring some powder down a barrel and pushing a bullet on top of it, you cannot be muzzled. That's right, everybody. We're talking about muzzleloader bullets. Today, we have a selection on the table. I have a selection of printouts, Ryan. I printed off another website. This one coming at you. These printouts coming at you from muzzleloading.com. And, I mean, you know this. I really like muzzleloading myself. They're fun. They're cool. They can be frustrating. What, Ryan?
I'm just trying to wonder how you kept your composure.
After your funny that you did right before the clock went to zero? Yeah, I don't know.
All right. Sorry.
Ryan made me laugh right before we kicked this thing off. But I tell you what's not a laughing matter. It's the importance of selecting the right bullet for your muzzleloader.
My God, Boardman, you are correct.
It's a big deal. It can be kind of challenging. Look at these printouts. This is not even close to all of them. I got some extras over here that were somewhat, redundant as far as styles and things like that. But
yeah. Yep, big deal. Massive evolution in the past 2 decades.
My goodness.
Yep.
About 2 decades. I mean, I'd say that you're about right.
Thanks.
When did Sabots, Sabots, people call them both things. Do those kind of hit mainstream about 25, 30 years ago?
Long time ago.
Maybe that's just when I became aware. Maybe that's when I just started getting into muzzleloading.
Yep. So once we started, within the context of muzzleloading, once we went to inline ignition, they really kicked off, but they existed before then.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess if you want to get really critical of that question, technically, a patch round ball is a Sabot cartridge.
I mean, loading. It's same principle.
It is, yep. But within the context of modern muzzleloading, once we went to inline ignition and we started increasing twist rates and reducing bore diameters from conventional like 58 to 54 into 50 and then 45 and then even smaller. Then they kicked up.
Am I correct in thinking, like I said, going back in history, like a lot of those original Sabots or Sabots were actually firing pistol bullets?
Yeah. Or even round balls.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, absolutely. So pistol bullets and even round balls to achieve a higher muzzle velocity and to improve trajectory, right? So if we went to Mark as on a couple of printouts and 2 bullets or 1 bullet style that's not shown here because they're really quite limiting in use now would be like a Maxi ball.
Never used one, never considered them.
Sure.
Somewhat intrigued by them though at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. They've super popular for a long time. Absolute game changer. When you were a round ball shooter to go to a Maxi ball, if your gun could handle it, you saw, generally speaking, much better performance. Not only in the loading and shooting, and even fouling, but on game.
Right. It's an all lead. I mean, maybe we can even come up with a picture here. It to me, it's almost reminiscent of I know it's not the same thing. Looks-wise, it kind of looks like a pellet that you just shoot out of your air rifle, but just 370 grains, at least in
heavier.
Or this version right here. The whole there's no sabot, there's no skirt, there's no. I mean, the bullet engages the rifle.
Correct,
and it's a little bit oversized, right?
Oversized and then also skirted in the rear, so that skirt pops open and obturates.
Okay.
And then around the bullet, and there's been a lot of different Maxi ball designs over the years that would have grease rings. Either
pre-lubricated, essentially.
They either came pre-lubricated or you lubricated them.
Right.
Yep. And so this is like the kind of first best move forward in modern times, anyways, from a full bore muzzleloader projectile, which we'll get to later.
Now, do you have to lubricate this or not?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
You could just use spit if you wanted to, though, right?
No. You're going to use a grease of some kind. So Wonder Lube, guys make up their own stuff. And are you ringing? Unbelievable.
I had a... yeah, we're on silent now.
Okay. I don't know if I am or not, but yeah, you would grease it, or you'd buy them pre-lubed. So you could buy TC Maxi balls from TC.
Right.
You open up the package, they're covered in Wonder Lube. And the grease rings are packed full. And guys would make their own grease, or they would buy a commercial product, either something in an adjacent industry or something specifically for this. There were dyes that you could grease them with, like greasing dyes. So you'd pass the projectile through the dye, it would come up a luber.
Oh, sure.
You know? Yep. And yeah, that's how you'd run them. I suppose you could run them greaseless. You'd run the risk of fouling out pretty quick. You'd run the risk of leading pretty quick, and you'd run the risk of like a very, very tight bore on your load to potentially like not able to load.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So if you look at a lot of cast lead loadings for say 4570, 4590, 45110, 5110, whatever, you'll see those bullets also have grease lube or grease channels on them, lube bands on them. You'd pre-lube them, load them into the cartridge, and fire them. Same thing. We're just removing the brass case.
I mean, from what I read about them, okay, to me, again, haven't used them. To me, they seem like they would shine really well out of like, your more traditional
Absolutely.
Type muzzleloader. It does say that you can shoot them out of a modern muzzleloader.
Absolutely.
As well,
Yep. So this would have been, I want you to think like Lyman Great Plains rifle, some of the CVA Hawkins. Probably not my Hawken. I don't think my twist rate's going to allow for any kind of real function.
Too slow.
Yeah, way too slow.
Yeah.
So I'm 1 in 66.
Okay, gotcha.
And so I think you need like a 1 in 48 or a 1 in 54 approximately to get some of these spun.
It's such a contrast to when we're talking about,
these days.
1 in 8,
Yeah, like
1 in 7.
I ordered an 8 twist 30 caliber barrel yesterday.
Or you think of the Q rifles, 1 in 3.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so they were best utilized in a rifle system not necessarily designed for a round ball. And there are similar projectiles, and we touched on this when we had talked about my Hawken rifle. Similar projectiles, they've got like a hollow base on them. They're kind of conical in shape that do work with a 60, 66, or 70 twist gun, kind of like my Hawken. But this is a whole nother thing. So like a lot of these, when I used to sell them, the guys were shooting the heavyweight stuff, 400 plus grain out of their gun. Not that 370's light, but it's on the lighter side of them. So they were shooting the big boys. And we sold a fair amount of them because the guys had Lyman GPRs, or they had, an 80s vintage CVA or a 70s vintage CVA Hawken style rifle, or they had a TC Hawken, and they were twisted appropriately and they could handle it. So 1 in 48, 1 in 54.
Well, I think it changed. Do not quote me. Check your local regs. I want to say Idaho, up until fairly recently, required a non-jacketed muzzleloader bullet. Now, I think like folks like Powerbelt were providing a solution to that. A more modern solution.
By jacketed, what you mean is no Sabot or Sabot.
No, I mean, I think it had to have a lead exterior.
Oh, no kidding.
Don't quote me.
Okay.
This might be
Powerbelt did have that. I shot the 405 grain leads for a while out of that gun.
And I'm sure other people did as well. That was one that I was aware of.
Sure. Understood.
Okay, so we've talked about anything else with these Maxi balls?
No. Let's go through the
did we kind of cover round balls too?
We did not.
Let's go down the line.
Okay, so we're talking muzzleloaders from the 1700s to 2025. Here we go. Starting with the lead round ball. Iconic muzzleloader projectile, right? You're going to have a lead round ball that is going to be undersized relative to your bore. You're going to take a patch material or a wad material of some kind, whether that's cotton, canvas, leather, paper. The ball goes in that. It goes down the barrel. You fire, out comes a round ball. Abysmal ballistic coefficients on these things. So they're absolutely horrible. They're not designed or intended for
Is there a number, or is it just round?
It's just it's bad. It's bad. It's below a 0.1.
Yeah.
So not an aerodynamically spectacular piece of kit. Nonetheless effective. Like a round ball within its respective range is a devastating thing to push through a critter, because they have a large surface area in the first place. They're blunt and they do compress. So when they hit, they squish out, right? Most of them are swaged that you buy these days. If you're a caster, you're going to cast them, and you're going to get a very similar product, a little bit softer perhaps. But they don't carry a lot of mass. Spheres don't contain a lot of mass within their size. So like, for instance, that's a 232.5 grain ball. Should be anyways. We're going to fact check me. This is a 54 caliber round ball. 224.8. So I guess we lost some material, maybe rolling around. But they're
what was it supposed to be?
I thought they were 232.5.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. But that's a, when you think about it, 54 caliber, that's a big bore, right? It's not that heavy of a slug.
No.
Yeah. So we did that for a long time, and then we would have had the Maxi ball kind of as this interim situation, or we would be placing the round ball inside of a Sabot, for those of you that call it that, because it is also correct. And then we moved into like saboted pistol bullets or saboted projectiles intended for upping the performance values of the muzzleloader. So like, let's enter mid to late 80s when this started getting really big, and then really kicking off into the mid to late 90s. So we have an example here of a Hornady SST ML loading, and what we have, two-part assembly. We have the polymer Sabot. So it looks not unlike a shotgun wad, just miniaturized. The base is hollow and tapered. And so I want you to think like, upon ignition, that base pops out, flares out, and engages the lands and grooves of the rifling. The projectile, not unlike the round ball, is undersized relative to the bore. Okay, so this is for a 50 caliber application. This bullet diameter is about 45. When you fit it into the Sabot itself, you'll see that the fingers or fins in the Sabot expand.
They flare out a little bit.
Yep. So that's what your bore contact is, the skirt and those fins. And that's what's engaging your lands and grooves. And then as it leaves the muzzle, okay, they open up just like a shotgun wad, and it strips away and discards. And what you're left with is an unmolested projectile, now rotating at the right speed for gyroscopic stabilization, at a higher velocity than you could propel, say a round ball, and actually fairly similar weight. This is a 250 grain. That's about a 230 grain. This sucker's going to move faster. You can also drive it with higher pressures because the material of the Sabot can take it. And you get the aerodynamic advantage of now a Spitzer type projectile, right? As an aside, if you ever wanted to know what a G1 ballistic profile should be used for, it's a projectile that looks just like this. And so these to this day are still super popular. They're affordable. They're effective. Often they load very easy. They make the Sabots come in a whole bunch of different materials and like hardnesses, right? So these days we're moving into modern muzzleloaders that are capable of 150 grain or greater charges, even smokeless. And you can burn a Sabot up or Sabot up. I'm going to have a hard time in this conversation switching between them. So now,
what do you?
I want to say Sabot from here on out.
Okay.
That's what I'm going to say. So with too high a pressure, you can torch a Sabot and it'll blow apart and your accuracy will be abysmal. You'll get a bunch of plastic fouling in the bore. So they make them out of different materials and different hardnesses that either facilitate ease of loading or facilitate the handling of pressures. And usually the harder the material, the better the pressure resilience, the harder the loading. And usually the softer the material, the easier the loading process is, the harder it is for it to manage pressure. So They're typically color-coded. Blacks and greens are usually your hardest. Yellows and whites are usually your softest. Consult your bullet manufacturer for more details.
I tried to find unsuccessfully. It's in my gear bomb of a gear closet right now. But I had some Remington Sabots. I say Sabot.
It's fine.
Sabot. Probably 25, 30 years old.
Sure.
Relics,
Yep.
right? Probably. I'm sure they don't even make that one anymore.
Sure.
But it's been around for a while. Still here. Still works.
Still works. Still and works great. And they are capable of outstanding accuracy and velocity. There was a brief period of time where I had this thought in my head that I was going to hunt everything in the West with a muzzleloader.
Okay.
So what I did was I bought a Thompson Center Omega and an Encore. The Omega was my foot wetting exercise. The Encore was what I thought it would aspire to be. It was a double Sabot situation. So instead of it being a 45 caliber projectile, it was a 40 caliber projectile or 375 caliber projectile inside of a Sabot. And so you had to stack them.
Sounds like the turducken of muzzleloader bullets.
Correct. Yeah, they're called duplex. And they actually, when I tuned them and I got them right, man, they were right, but they were a pain in the butt to get going. I abandoned that project. I also did a 25 ACP conversion on my Encore. I abandoned that project.
And this would have been, I don't know, Ryan, 8 years ago. I don't know, something like that. I borrowed a Gunworks muzzleloader.
Yeah, I remember when it came in.
And very fine rifle, very accurate, but it was using a Sabot. I think it was a pretty trick bullet. I almost wonder, and we'll get there, I almost wonder if it was one of these Fury Customs.
Could be.
It had a black tip on it, I remember.
Could be. That could be a couple things.
It had a black tip and a black Sabot.
Could have been a Scorpion as well. But running concurrent with the Sabot projectiles came along what I'm just going to refer to as a skirted projectile. And there's been a few iterations of these. Some lasted the test of time, some went away. And this is a CVA power belt. This is a 54 caliber power belt, Mark.
Yes, it went with my Rem 700 54 cal.
Power belts were one of the first bullets that I hunted with. And you want to talk about a projectile that I think ushered in inline muzzleloading to the masses and reduced a lot of the stress involved with it. It was the CVA power belt.
I think that was the first muzzleloading bullet that I used, and it did just simplified things. They loaded well and shot well. And
what's neat about them is they have a post on the underside of the bullet that's part of the casting process. And I want to dispel a couple myths right now. These are not jacketed projectiles. They're copper washed.
Okay.
Or plated. And that's okay. That's fine. It's not a bad thing.
Is that this one in particular or?
All of them.
All of them. Okay.
All of them. And what happens is this little post on the backside here, the skirt that's made out of similar material that the wads or the Sabots are on the previous projectile we looked at, it locks onto that little post and it becomes like this incorporated unit. So it is also domed in the back or dished in the back. That's what's obturating and grabbing our lands and grooves. They're, if anything, an extraordinarily minor bore contact. We're not engraving deeply here. The skirt is what's taking the brunt of that force. And these things are super simple. They came in a 15 pack, I believe. You just take the bullet out after you put the pellets or the powder in and you just ram it down. And they're super affordable. They are capable of extraordinary accuracy. In fact, Slingin' Rick, when he went on that first Nebraska muzzleloader hunt, I of course, gave him this dizzying amount of information and options that he could select from. he opted into the power belts for ease of use. I think he was shooting the 245 grain arrow tips, and his gun, which was that long abused Encore of his, it shot those things like just over a minute of angle at 100 yards.
Lights out.
Yes. And then another contemporary, which actually I have in my desk and I didn't bring, what a knucklehead, was a bullet that Hornady made for a long time called the FPB, which was my favorite muzzleloader projectile.
I used those a fair amount,
Yep.
and really, that was one of those things when it went away, I was like, oh, man.
Super sad. The FPB is very similar to the power belt in design, except the skirt is not removable. The skirt is part of the bullet, right? So here we have a concave-based projectile that is just under bore diameter, that when you fire, the entire concave base pops out, engages the lands and grooves, and spins. This isn't novel. That has existed in centerfire projectile technology for 150 years. Just a conical base bullet. They got the sizing correct from the factory to get that nailed down. And the FPB and the power belt, I shot the power belts for a while. I killed some things with it, did some, autopsies, saw some things I didn't like, needed a similar solution because I like that
Right.
bore fit. And that was the FPB. And then I ran those things for years. Man, did I shoot a lot of deer with them. In fact, your Omega, that camo stock gun,
Loved them.
oh, hammers with those things. The 350s in particular. They had 300s and 350s, and your gun loved the 350s. And then, unfortunately, that bullet went away. Power belt is still here. They are still probably the most ubiquitous and user-friendly projectile on the market if you're looking to get into muzzleloading. And
there's a lot to be said for that.
oh yeah, absolutely. And if you can figure out what bullet weight your gun likes, I promise you there's a solution in there, and they're going to work famously. I think Rick killed his deer at 260.
It was a poke.
Yeah, I want to say 260. I think he had 11 MOA on the bottom of his Deadhold BDC reticle, and I think it went to 264, and I think that's what he killed it at, and just crushed it, right? So we currently in the industry have available to us, and we're going to go now early to mid 2000s. That's where we're at. So we have round balls, we have sabots, we have these skirted bullets, and then this new bullet technology or skirting technology came onto scene. Federal being the first that I'm aware of that brought it commercially successful.
Was that the Borlock?
The Borlock MZ.
Yeah.
That was a bullet that I also fell in love with. So what's neat about those, that's an undersized projectile that then had a skirt on the back of it that was locked to the assembly. And I'm pulling this one off of this Hornady board driver, this ELDX. What happens is when you load it, there's zip for load pressure. Those things go down the bore just beautifully.
When I look at that, I'm like, that is a hybrid from what I'll say our traditional Sabot.
Yeah.
And then the skirt on the back end of this power belt.
So how these worked and how the Federal Borlock MZs worked as well is upon detonation, when we fire, the skirt slams forward. It locks into the back of the projectile with great force, expands we'll call it the Sabot portion of it out, engages the lands and grooves of rifling, and then discards upon leaving the muzzle, typically. I've never recovered a Borlock MZ. I've never killed anything with one of these. A very good buddy of mine, local guy here, I got him set up last year to go to New Mexico for an elk hunt. This is what we used. What then flew down range was this, and the Borlock MZ was a little bit different. That one, I think, definitely stuck to the bullet and stayed with the bullet the whole time. Hornady's, as far as we're aware, completely discards. But very similar principles. It's undersized, it drives forward upon detonation, hooks up and goes. The Borlock MZ kind of had a crumple zone or a crush zone that then expanded out and gripped and ripped. This, I think, is a better design. The novelty behind this, and we'll just highlight this projectile in particular. So this is I think it's a 345 grain ELDX bore driver. So I shoot high performance muzzleloader quite a bit. I've got a smokeless gun. It's awesome. They make these in 45 and 50 caliber. When you look at it, you're like, damn, that thing is pointy.
Yeah. Look at the BC on that thing, Jay.
It's wild. It's super high. And when I was setting my buddy Logan's gun up, he had a Remington UML that he had converted to an Arrowhead ignition system. So we're now as high performance as we can make this system, and we're running copious amounts of Blackhorn 209. I think the charge weight that I got him to where we were very comfortable with the shootability and the consistency on the chronograph was right around 90 grains by weight.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I think I started.
That's significant.
Yeah, I think I started at 80 and we worked up, and we were shooting it to 330 yards with irons, and absolutely laying waste to a steel target.
What irons did he have on it?
He had a Williams Western set.
Cool.
Yeah. So there's a BDC reticle in there, and it was very useful. Really, really enjoyed that gun. Really, really made me want to buy one. So 50 caliber projectile. It's actually 0.499 diameter on the bullet itself, and then pops out, and we've got that skirt. Very aerodynamic profile. When you look at it, it is a boat tail. It's got a very aggressive nose profile. I immediately text Luke from Arrowhead Rifles, because these were very new on scene when I was getting that gun set up, and I guess it was 2 years ago now. And I said, hey man, if you've got 50 caliber like Colorado hunters or 45 caliber, Blackhorn hunters, and they want a spectacular projectile, like, recommend this thing. It's awesome. At 100 yards, like, with those irons, sub-minute of angle, if I could hold steady all day long. And it was marvelous. And I really quite fell in love with them. I was also working with Cooper because he had a Utah mule deer hunt. He had a CVA Paramount and was shooting the Power Belt ELRs, which have a similar profile to the ELDX, but a different mechanism. That also shot very well. They're just really kind of a fancy standard Power Belt with a better skirt material. So that bore driver technology, think undersized bullet, oversized skirt, if you'll call it that upon ignition drives forward, obturates, engages, lands and grooves, either discards or stays with the projectile. Really cool bullet. Like, really cool bullet. Be mindful of your twist rates if you're thinking about running those. Hornady does make a bore driver in a more conventional profile. So if your gun is not twisted 1 in 22, for instance, if you've got a 1 in 48 gun, you can shoot that in there. Or I'd be curious if it'll stabilize in a 1 in 28. I should really try it. But great bullet, great projectile. I cannot say enough about what the guys over at Hornady did with that bore driver, and specifically the bore driver ELD-X. I set up Andrew Lundy's CVA with the standard bore drivers, and that thing was bullet on top of bullet. So high praise for that. About the same time as, maybe a little later than the Power Belts, certainly before this particular projectile, this bore driver, but concurrent with some others, came bullets with this very interesting nylon washer on the back of them. So the example that we have here is a Fury Star Tip Universal. So bullet is undersized relative to bore, and then mechanically adhered to the backside of the bullet is this nylon washer. And this is what's gripping and ripping your lands and grooves. It's doing a couple things. It's giving us engagement on the rifling. It's also acting as like what a veggie wad would provide, like a seal, so that we can build pressure. We don't get slip around the bullet. So all of these other things, so from round ball, your wadding prevents slip. From Sabot, the skirt prevents slip. On the Power Belt, the skirt prevents slip. On the bore driver, the skirt prevents slip. That's what this washer does. We build pressure. We burn powder cleanly and consistently. We then grip and rip lands and grooves of rifling. We've seen, out of your gun, tremendous success with these.
So that's what I was going to say. That's the bullet that I have settled on as of late.
Yeah.
I would be really curious to try the Hornady bore driver. But and we're going to talk about some of, well, I guess this one that we have, down the row here, which I was trying, and just it was a little bit finicky, wasn't able to get it right, and then almost as which I thought that was going to be the ultimate precision solution for me.
It typically is, but
and maybe it still could be. I'm sure.
No, I know why your gun doesn't do it.
Why?
Because of varying bore diameter.
Oh, yeah. Regardless.
Yeah.
Went and got myself a pack of those.
Yep.
And they shot famously out of my CVA. They shot famously out of my my other Remington open sight muzzleloader that I used for didn't get one. Came very close to for Washington Elk where you needed open sights. Oh, it's a whole thing.
We'll talk about it off air.
I ended up not shooting, so it's not like I missed or something like that. But man, I shoved those things down the barrel on top of some powder. Consistent muzzle velocities. The accuracy was essentially a ragged hole at 100. And again, kind of going back to the simplicity of some of these other and ease of use that some of these other offerings offer. Dude, I was back in the game. I'm like, dude, I've got a solution that is shooting like an absolute house of fire.
Yeah.
And it's less work.
Yep.
Perfect. That's exactly what I'm looking for.
Absolutely. And so with Mark's particular gun, we're going to move into the next bullet.
Can I ask a real quick question?
Yeah, please.
Is this going to be a little bit less prone to like plastic fouling, perhaps?
Yeah, just on surface area.
Yeah.
Yep. So moving to the next bullet, this is also a Fury Star tip, but this is one that is designed to be swaged to fit. So this is what I call a full bore bullet. So we have contact. We are engraving the bullet with rifling as we drive it down. And then upon firing, the base also obturates and then further seals off. And then this is a bullet that you have to use a veggie wad with to get proper seal. It grips and rips the rifling. So we set up, I don't know how many we've done. I'm going to wager a guess and say between 20 and 25 CVA Acura MRs or MRXs or PR or PRXs for guys and gals here at the shop. Like, it's my most recommended economy muzzleloader because they're just famous. And so I have MRs. I don't have MRXs. The MRs, there's like a recipe that I can just dial my die to with this thing. I run it 3 passes through the swaging die. You do a feel fit down the barrel, and it's like a rifle. Travis Baran shot what I believe to be the smallest group I've ever observed, and I think we measured it at like 0.04 MOA.
Incredible.
Yep, with a muzzleloader, and I mean, just hilariously, it was a 50 caliber hole in the paper with minor deviation. And we just dialed the fit for his gun. He was shooting a TC on that one. He ended up going to a Acura, and it shoots all as well. And in fact, I was with him when he killed a white-tailed doe. She was over 200. She was maybe like 229. We were in Nebraska on a muzzleloader hunt and just absolutely crushed her. What appealed to me about this projectile, though, is not just the bore fit and the ability for consistency and accuracy, but the bullet construction. And the way that this projectile is engineered, how it expands, at what velocity it expands, and then how it's designed to like take shape through the critter. And I've killed a number of critters with them now, and I've been with on a number of kills, and they're devastating. But they have to be dialed to the individual gun. Now, Mark's gun, and this is not atypical, this is not uncommon, has bore diameter variance through the bore. And so Mark's gun is what I would consider choked, but not at the end of the muzzle. So Mark's gun is open to tight to open to tight. And again, not uncommon. You can feel it when you're working with the bullets.
Right.
And so maybe, and I'm going to make these numbers up, maybe the first 3 inches of Mark's bore from the muzzle was relatively open. So when we had started the sizing process, I sized open, and I'm like, okay, that's good resistance. And then all of a sudden we hit a wall and we could not push the bullet past. Okay, well, it's choked, but not at the end. If it was choked at the end, it would have been great.
Right.
Popped out that bullet and then restricted the sizing diameter on the die, started running it down the bore. So, okay, we're wide open. The bullet almost falls on the bore. We hit that intermediate choke point. We have good resistance, and then it falls in the middle and then hits the end. And we kind of had to like balance a little bit. Like, this is the diameter that works for this point and this point in the barrel, and we hope for the other. And then when it came to shooting it, it just didn't work out. So like that bullet was well sized for the breech end of the barrel. And then we hit this point in the middle where now we're getting gas slip. And then we hit another choke point. So now we've got gas slip and fouling around the outside of the bullet. And then we hit a choke point. So now we got this kind of grindy situation. Then we hit an open point. We probably had tilt and yaw. And they shot terrible. I mean, they shot 4-6 minutes of angle, maybe. And switch back to the universals, Mark's back to a minute of angle gun. So it just happened that his gun really, really needed something like the universal. My gun and many others benefited from the sizing bullet. Now, the swaging of bullets for muzzleloaders, that is certainly not new. People have been doing that for as long as I've been cognizant of muzzleloaders, and it used to be kind of a high-end kung fu methodology of doing this. But guys figured it out, and they're like, yeah, I want to shoot I've got a 50 caliber gun. I'm going to take this 510 diameter, 50 caliber projectile made for this, giant revolver cartridge, and I'm going to swage it through a sizing die to perfectly fit my bore. And they're like, yeah, I don't have to goof around with any skirts or sabots. And I have this hyper accurate projectile that is now doing incredible things from a terminal ballistic standpoint. Life is good.
I mean, I'll say for me, though, it was kind of the reverse of what you just said. I'm like, oh, you know what? Was it frustrating at first trying to sort it out? Yeah, it was, because it's like, you kind of scratch your head. What the heck is going on here? But then once I got those, I'm like, oh, well, that is actually alleviating.
Oh, yeah, because you don't have to swage.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct. Now, the final one, this one's a little bit harder to do because this is a merger between your barrel and your bore diameter and your bullet manufacturer. And there's a few different ways to accomplish it. The example that we have on the table here is one of Luke Horak's. It's called an NSR. And an NSR, the acronym stands for no sizing required. So I own an Arrowhead muzzleloader, an Obsidian, serial number 3, might I add, from Luke. I know, I was thinking up. I might have had something to do with the name. So Luke, when he was building the industry's best smokeless muzzleloaders in Iowa, was getting his barrels from a couple of different manufacturers. And like, we have to understand how smart Luke Horak is. He's pinning his barrels and he's seeing that it's very difficult to hold a tolerance to a specific like plus minus with these barrels. And we're not talking about a huge deviation, but like enough that he identified that there are 2 diameters that you need, or you can swage. And so my first 2 guns from him were swage guns. So the bullet looked identical, but I had to swage them and to fit my individual bore. When he moved his shop, and this might have been transition from the late phases of Iowa to where he is now in Phoenix, he worked very closely with his barrel manufacturers, and they've landed on a standard and like plus minus nothing. And from there, he took a look at his projectile technology and said, okay, I can then dial that into fit. And so he came up with the NSR. And it is just that. So with this particular bullet and my particular gun, and actually every other Arrowhead rifle that leaves Luke's shop, I take the gun, I pour my powder down it, whether it's an unbelievable sum of Blackhorn 209 or a very stout charge of smokeless powder. I take the bullet, I put it in my funnel, drops through my funnel, and then pull that out. I take my ramrod, and it's 2 fingers of load pressure all the way down. I seat it on the top of the powder column. No additional leaning, jabbing, stabbing. take my ramrod out, and I have a gun that I've shot to 1,000 yards.
No veggie wad?
No veggie wad. If I shoot Blackhorn, I'll wad it.
Okay.
Yep. And that's more so for like cold weather ignition. And Blackhorn doesn't generate quite the energy that the smokeless stuff does, so it does seem to help quite well with velocity consistency. But what's super cool about a true bore fit, and if your bore condition is great, is the consistency that you'll observe from your gun while auditing your chronograph, which on a muzzleloader, I know that seems a little over the top, but like if you want to know what makes a super accurate muzzleloader, it's that everything is the same every single time.
Well, and I know this is we're talking about bullets here, but anytime we're talking about muzzleloaders, I feel we need to talk about the merit of measuring your charges by weight.
Yeah, correct.
Because I've seen some of the lowest SDs that I've seen shooting anything via muzzleloaders with charges measured by weight.
Yeah. So with my Arrowhead, the lowest SD I've ever observed as a hand loader, as a shooter, as a hunter, as a guy who's worked with guns for 2 decades is a 1.1.
Incredible.
And that was out of my Arrowhead.
If I recall, out of my CVA, I think it was like 6. I was astounded.
Yep. And so that's a dialing of powder charge weight, again, as Mark mentioned, by weight, not volume, and then a properly fit projectile. So there's no variance, no deviation. There's no allowance for gas slip, more or less shot to shot. And there's also techniques that come into play like load pressure. But when you get them figured out, my God, are they cool? Because we're taking the cartridge case out of the equation. We have no variance in the brass thickness. We have no variance in the internal volume. We have no variance in how far away the primer was set from the flash hole, via thickness of the web or just the seat depth or any air gap in the case. All that's gone. So the case is out of the equation. The gun is now just primer, powder, bullet, and the chamber becomes the case at that point. And you can dial it in with a pretty keen and intelligent projectile selection, and then you're off to the races, man. It will help you extend your distance to your muzzleloader. Your
distance, your confidence.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, all the things. I want to talk about one more bullet that I think is pretty cool. We don't have it on the table here. I do have it in my printouts, Ryan, and that's the Thor hammer.
Yeah. So the Thor hammer. This is a neat bullet. I've shot a few Thors over the years. The Thor hammer is a Barnes muzzleloader bullet. It's their MZ.
It's essentially a Barnes X type design, though, I believe.
Tipped, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And so the back of the Thor, if you look at a Thor and you look at a Hornady FPB, very similar idea here.
Yeah.
So there's a hollow base on the back of the Thor with a slight rebate to the boat tail. And then with the Thors, you get them in here's what I'd recommend you do.
Well, that's what I wanted to talk about right here. This is what I have in the printout. This is the Thor hammer bullet sizing pack. So essentially, they're giving you a selection of pre-sized bullets. You buy the pack, you figure out the one that's going to fit best down your barrel, almost like when you would, go through the process of swaging, except it's essentially pre-swaged, and you're like, boom, okay, cool. I need this size. Then you order those bullets.
Yep. So your bore is going to vary between 0.499 and about 0.504. That's where a lot of them seem to land. I've not seen any really tighter than that. Maybe a little looser than that, but between 499 and 504, and probably realistically between 500 and 502 is where a lot of those play. As Mark mentions, you get the sizing pack. You're going to know when they're too big because they don't go. They do not move. That is a solid copper projectile. There is zip for compression. You find one that fits not too loose, but just right. Not to the point of like leaning on that ramrod, and then you shoot. And when you find them that fit your gun, and those guys over there at Thor are wizards, so call them and tell them, I have a TC Omega, I have a TC Icon, or not Icon, I don't remember all their contemporaries then. I have a CVA Paramount, I have a Remington UML. they've collected the data points and they know what's working with those fairly well. They'll kind of guide you in on that. You reap the benefit of a full bore bullet, which I love. I cannot say enough about them. You then, I think, get a pretty big benefit of a solid copper projectile. And the way that those bullets are engineered, they've lowered the velocity threshold on them significantly. So if I'm shooting pretty modest charges of Blackhorn 209 out of my muzzleloaders, they're about 1,900 foot per second guns, 1,950 on some of them. By the time I get to 200 yards, I'm already at that 1,600 foot per second or even lower, depending. Those things are designed to accommodate that. And then when I drive them in something like a Remington UML, that I can get that gun north of $2,000 all day long and north of that by margin. Now I have a viable solution to 300 plus, right?
Right.
Yeah. And
right.
the Thor's a great bullet. I think your brother shoots Thors, doesn't he?
I think so. I think so. Coincidentally, and this was just timing, I've been texting with guy Austin Mosier, incredible fishing guide. If you want to go fish for salmon,
He uses muzzleloader for
other
that?
things in the great state of Washington.
Oh, you're from Washington, right?
You remember. Anyway, if you need to fish, check out Austin Mosier. You can check all the stuff he does out on the old Instagram machine. But I think he's coming up toward the end of his fishing season. He's going to hit the hills pretty soon. So he was texting me some stuff. He's got a Crossfire 1X on his Muzzy. And then he was sending me just some, pictures of the accuracy that he was getting out of it. And then he did recover a bullet, and I had texted him like, "Hey, what bullet is that?" And it's pretty much what I had assumed. But there's Ryan, you like recovered bullets?
Yeah, I do. That's the Thor.
So that's not from a game animal, but that is the Barnes Magnum MZ.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So same bullet technology. Yep. Same bullet technology, just using a Sabot on that one.
But beautiful expansion, though.
Yeah, I'll tell you, when those projectiles hit something, it's like taking a boat propeller that is rotating at high RPMs and putting it through whatever you're shooting at. So devastating.
But so anyway, that's what he settled on. And he's getting some really good accuracy out of it.
Heck
and
yeah.
and I don't know what the medium that he shot that into that he was able to recover it, but
Probably a clay bank.
possibly.
There you have it.
There you have it, muzzleloader bullets. I don't know if we simplified things for anybody today, but we sure went through the different types of options.
Yeah. Something in there works for you. I promise.
Right.
Yep. And just because it's not the fanciest or the most technologically advanced doesn't mean it's not effective. I know a lot of guys that have never shot anything other than the Hornady SSTMLs because they came with the muzzleloader that they bought in a pack, and they just stuck with it throughout their muzzleloading career, and they've enjoyed great success. I know folks that only shoot power belts. There are people like me that can't leave well enough alone.
I was going to say I'm at times guilty of monkeying with things for the sake of monkeying with things.
Just got to be
And
done.
then generally I end up pulling my hair out
Yeah.
because it's hard to argue with something that just simply is working.
Yeah, correct.
But it's fun to explore your options a little bit.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, Ryan. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. You might think, oh, gosh, aren't we a little bit early to think about muzzleloaders? Well, I mean, there's some early muzzleloaders. I think Kansas has a pretty early muzzleloader season. And, heck, you can use them during, muzzleloader straight wall type seasons, which here's the problem with every muzzleloader hunt that I've ever been on. It comes up a lot faster than I ever expect it's going to, and then all of a sudden I'm scrambling at the last minute. So that's why we're talking about this now.
Or it's negative 27 and you're sharing a Ameristep doghouse blind with your buddy. And it's so cold that the turkeys know you're there. They just don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you shoot and the field clears and then like 10 minutes later, they're like, I got to come back and eat.
All of them came back. That was a wild night, man.
That was the deer and the turkeys.
We should do that again.
Dude, lock it in. I'm ready. So, cool. All right. Well, again, thank you, Ryan. Thanks everybody for listening. Get your muzzleloader fired up and ready to go, so you're not scrambling at the last minute like we generally do. Until next time, happy hunting and shooting. Maybe we'll see you in the late season with your muzzleloader. Bye, everybody.
See ya.